Let's see, I'll start by saying that Jessica comes up with a lot of great themes for this one. I don't know, for whatever reason, Jessica, this is the one I had the hardest time coming up for something to say because it's soapbox, man. I wanted to, with everything going on in the world, I wanted to come up here and save democracy or something. But I don't know, maybe we started to do that on Tuesday, pressure off me. But still, the thing is, like, I still couldn't settle on one story. And it's not like I don't have opinions, I just have a lot of them, and they're just kind of stupid. And then I was looking at the calendar, and I'm like, well, shoot, man, this gig is 10 days before my birthday. And, like, means it's my birthday month. And when it's your birthday month, if you want cake, you're not going to tell me I can only have one piece of cake. You're going to let me have as much as I want. I'm going to stuff my fat face with it, right? I'm going to do the same concept with soapbox stories. It's my birthday month, so do you think I'm going to come up here and only tell one story? Doesn't matter, you can't stop me, it's my birthday month. I'm going to tell you 10 stories. Don't worry, Jessica, I promise I'll be done by last call. Now look, that brings me to my first story. Birthdays are for the young. All right, look, I realize it's ridiculous for someone as old as me to be up here talking about birthday months, right? Too old for that, right? You know who it's not too old for? My daughter. It's also her birthday month. She turns 11 5 days after I turn however old I'm turning. Here's the difference. She cares. She's literally been planning her birthday since her last birthday. She's got guest lists, outfits, activities, playlists. I swear to God, if she got a hold of my credit card, she would have booked the venue and security in April. The difference is with me, I'm trying to pretend my birthday doesn't exist. And I've been doing that since my last birthday. Because all my birthday is to me is an annual reminder that I'm going to die. So that's me. My daughter, she cares. But honestly, I am glad she is so excited. Because it'll be the one day of the year that I know she'll be doing a different activity that she does every other day, which is literally scrolling through an iPad like she wants to be some sort of zombie influencer. And that brings me to my second soapbox story. Infinite screen time is maybe not that terrible. Look, I know my daughter loves me, I really do, and stuff. She just might love her iPad a little bit more. Like, when she comes home from school, I might get a passing hello, might, and then she runs, grabs her iPad, calls her friends, and then logs into Roblox like it's her job. And honestly, the only time that I could ever matter in this scenario is if she, for some reason, can't find her iPad. Then I'm expected to drop everything and become Liam Neeson in Taken and use my special set of skills to find her iPad, which thankfully normally just says, "Hey, sweetie, when's the last time you used it?" And look, I judge her for this. I really do, scrolling on her iPad all day. Because I didn't do that when I was a kid. I was a civilized human being. I didn't ignore my mom and run and get my iPad. I ignored my mom and ran to the TV and watched cartoons and played Nintendo. So, I don't know. Maybe our generation wasn't really that better than today's generation, but it just seems worse. And that brings me to my third soapbox story. Infinite screen time is terrible. Now look, when I would ignore my mom and go to the TV, in a couple hours, I'd maybe watch 3 shows, whatever, right? In that same amount of time, my daughter will scroll through about a zillion reels. When I was a kid, we had like 4 channels, 1 TV. When my dad came home from work and wanted to put on the evening news, no Happy Days reruns for me, right? But nowadays, everybody has their own screen. You can watch it as much as you want, whenever you want. And content is infinite. Literally, everybody thinks they're a content creator. Back when I was a kid, if you wanted to get that level of attention, you have to have some talent. Now, You just need a phone and maybe some unresolved issues. Look, if we walked outside right now 30 years ago and there was somebody ranting and raving on the corner, we'd be like, oh my God, they got some mental problems, they need help. Now, they're making a TikTok. But don't get me wrong, they still need help. And you know how I know that? Because the time period that TikTok became super popular was when we all needed help. And that is my fourth soapbox story. The friggin' pandemic and TikTok. All right, look, pandemic was a rough time for everyone. It was rough, all right? We all watched The Tiger King. This guy, Joe Exotic, who was raising tigers, somehow relegated the president-elect to the second most important Joe in America. That happened, right? And so if that's what we were doing, we were out of ideas. So why not scroll through a bunch of nitwits making reels with your infinite amount of free time? Why not? And if you think about it, if you were going to, create the perfect environment for TikTok to become popular, wouldn't it be a virus that kept everyone home for 2 years? And maybe if you were a company in China that owned TikTok, you wouldn't need a marketing plan. You would just need to figure out a way to engineer that virus in a lab, maybe in a mysterious province of Wuhan. I ain't going there. I'm not going to be a conspiracy theorist. But you know who will? Maybe the only thing that gained more popularity than TikTok during the pandemic? Doing your own research. My fifth soapbox story is you're not doing your own research, dumbass. All right, look. I understand the pandemic was hard. People wanted to know what to do, and scientists, they kept changing their recommendations and mandates. But here's the thing. The whole situation was unprecedented, right? So science had their data, and they made their best guesses. And then as they learned more, those recommendations evolved. In fact, they're probably still evolving today, because that's how science works. That is the literal definition of science. It's not supposed to give you an absolute. Not carved in stone, and certainly not on day one. But that was the thing. People wanted absolutes. And actually, let me take that back. They didn't want quite an absolute. They wanted to be told what was already in their head of what they believed was actually true. And that is very easy these days because the internet, it's like a superstore of bad ideas. So doing your own research was literally just Googling until you found somebody saying exactly what you wanted to think anyway. That's not doing your own research. That is confirmation bias. Anyway, so sorry, I got a little worked up on that one. Where was I? Yes, but what was the one? It was TikTok. Research. Oh, research, right. Doing your own research. Right. So anyway, that is the thing. If you look around enough, you are going to find someone on TikTok telling you that nothing is real. And that brings me to my sixth story of the night. Facts should still matter. Now, look, the war on facts, it didn't start during the pandemic. It maybe just got perfected. It actually started 4 years earlier when a certain person got elected president. Now, you might not remember this. I don't know, maybe you do. First day of the administration, his new press secretary, this guy, Sean Spicer, walks out. And he comes out with these poster board size pictures of the inauguration. And that was the priority to talk about on day one. Not healthcare, not foreign policy, not the plan for the country, crowd size. And he sat there and he told us that this was the biggest presidential inauguration in history. I still, to this day, do not know why that matters. And the weirdest part is we all had eyes. Like, We knew that wasn't true, but yet there he was telling us that this is what mattered. And ever since then, facts do not matter. Polls, wrong. Elections, rigged. Job report, fire the person who gave that to you. Wars, apparently don't exist because one man can personally end them all with a tweet. Now, look, I know that before 2016, we actually could have political debates. I remember talking to my friends about something like the tax code, right? I thought that higher earners should be taxed at a higher rate. I had friends who thought that people who made more money should be allowed to keep more of it in their pocket. Fine, we disagreed. Our life experiences had brought us to a different interpretation, but we agreed on the premise, right? Today, that debate would start with somebody saying, yo man, math is woke, over and over and over again, and you wouldn't be able to get in another word. You would have to walk away before they start fact-checking gravity on you. Now, that is dangerous in this day and age, because when people think that facts are no longer real, we have robots out there making things that look real that actually aren't. And that brings me to my 7th soapbox story. AI is not your personal scapegoat. All right, look. You didn't like the Ronald Reagan ad that talked about tariffs, okay, right? Tell us why. Tell us why you disagreed with. Tell us why Reagan was wrong. Or say why he's being misconstrued. Don't just say it was made by AI and doesn't exist. And oh yeah, at the same time, if there's something that you do like, but that can't be fact-checked, right? You can't actually fact-check something because you like it. Life should not work that way. AI has done, it will do a lot of great things, right? In fact, I bet AI could come up here and tell a story and at least have some mediocre success. But AI should not be a personal scapegoat just to make sure everything is counted. In fact, here's what I learned about AI, all right? There is artists and music being made by AI that is on the Billboard charts. Like, isn't that amazing? And when people find out that it's made by AI, they don't care. They continue listening to it anyway. And you know who should be really, really mad about that? Milli Vanilli. Milli Vanilli got a raw deal. Now, if you don't know who Milli Vanilli is, really popular group in the late 80s, 2 guys with dreads singing, they won a bunch of Grammys, bunch of popular songs. All of a sudden, people found out it wasn't those 2 guys with dreads who were singing. And all of a sudden, they were banned, right? They stripped them of their Grammys. The fake Milli, the real Vanilli, didn't really matter. They all just disappeared into the ether, never to be heard from again. And you know the worst part about it all? Their music was good. Like, do you remember? Girl, you know it's true. Ooh, 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 I love you. Yes, you know it's true. Ooh, ooh, ooh. AI isn't singing this to you. They were real humans. We should have cared. That should have mattered. It wasn't them who said to fool the world and lip sync. We should have cared about their feelings. And that brings me to my 9th soapbox. Empathy is not a weakness. Now, true story here. A while back, I was hanging out with some coworkers. We had a work event. We're all having drinks, small group of us. And my boss, he proudly says, oh, the company is adopting a no assholes policy. And, okay, yeah, fine on the surface, but I had a few questions. I asked, okay, who gets to decide who is an asshole? And what if the person deciding who is an asshole is an asshole? And then if all that is true, how do we know that we didn't just create an environment that is organically breeding assholes? I thought these were all fair questions, but apparently I struck a nerve. Because next thing I know, after a few more drinks, my boss has pulled me aside. And he's telling me that I can't have my level of empathy and be successful in the workplace. This is true, 100%. This quote, he says to me that I need to be able to cut people's hearts out if needed. And mind you, he's not talking about our competitors, he is talking about our coworkers. And I'm like, didn't this just start with you telling me there's going to be a no asshole policy? But he's not alone. Elon Musk, who literally has the empathy of a garden hose, he is on record by saying empathy is a fundamental weakness of Western civilization. Think about that. He thinks that caring too much is one of the worst things about humanity. And to me, that is wild. Because if you think about it, like if you think about what's happening in the world, where people are saying that, oh, okay, if you have empathy, you're all of a sudden weak, naive, or in some cases dangerous, you aren't even taking the time to understand someone's experience. Having empathy does not mean you just agree with whatever the other person is thinking. It means you just understand them enough to know that, okay, they've had a different life experience and maybe see the world different than you. So yeah, I agree with my former boss. I disagree with my former boss. I disagree with Elon Musk. I do not think empathy is a weakness. Empathy is, in our fact, our purpose. Caring for others is our purpose. It is almost the best thing about humanity. And if we continue to strip empathy away, I don't know what we're going to do or be able to distinguish ourselves from the AI robots. And that brings me to my last soapbox story of tonight. Elon Musk wants to ban empathy, but I gotta tell you, there is a much, much, much more evil danger in the world. We need to ban group dinners. Look, if you're trying to plan a group dinner for my birthday, don't. I would rather spend those 3 hours doom scrolling with my daughter than be at a long table with a bunch of random people. All right? It's like a living group text that you never wanted to be invited to in the first place, right? And here's the worst thing about group dinners. Your entire enjoyment of the night depends on one very, very random variable. And I'm not talking about the food. I'm not talking about the service. I'm not even talking about the parking or anything else. It is who you sit next to. If you're lucky, you sit next to somebody you like. But then you still got to figure out how to have 3 hours of conversation with one person. If you're unlucky, then you're spending 3 hours with a do-your-own-research dumbass. And here's the thing. It's a group dinner. You can't get up and ask people if they want to change seats. That would be anarchy, and you would be hurting other people's feelings. So you just have to sit there and nod silently while your soul dies inside you somewhere between the calamari and the check. And by the way, there's always calamari, because as soon as the menus come out, some hotshot says, we're going to order group appetizers. And by group appetizers, he means all the appetizers in the menu. In fact, 2 appetizers, because the nitwit who makes TikTok reels wants to make sure she has enough for all of it. Now, listen, I am low carb. I do not eat red meat. I know what's about to happen. 90% of the appetizers that are coming out, I'm not going to touch. But that's okay, right? Because facts matter. And when the check comes, you'll be like, you know what, Ravi? You didn't have any of the appetizers. You shouldn't pay for that, right? Wrong. You always split the check evenly, apparently. So you know what I do when that happens? Well, I do what any rational, empathetic, pandemic-surviving human would do. I start ordering 3 drinks at once. Because, you know what? If I'm going to split the check, I am going to get my money's worth. And on that note, somebody buy me a drink. It's my birthday month. In fact, make it a double. And I never will forget the day we met. Girl, I'm going to miss you.